I would like to continue by showing you how to create an animation using masks. Let's go ahead and open a project that you have included in your project files. File, Open Project, or Control or Command O. The project is called Growing Flower Start. Go ahead and select it and choose Open. In here, you're going to see a solid, and you will also see a composition that contains that solid with several masks in it. Select the solid and press M for mask. I'm going to make this a little bit taller. And there you go. The flower layer contains the stem, the leaf, the thorns, the flower base, and finally the flower. What we need to do is we need to separate all of these into different layers. So I'm going to grab the flower layer and I'm going to duplicate it. The shortcut for duplicating a layer is Control D on Windows or Command D on the Mac. I did it about 8 times. All I have to do is to name these layers appropriately. Let me go ahead and select the flower layer and press M for mask. And I'm going to name this layer Stem. The next one will be named Leaf. This one Left Thorn. This one Right Thorn. This one Flower Base. And finally the flower. I have 2 extra layers that I'm going to delete. And there you go. Now the trick here is that I need to delete all of the masks that are not the ones that belong to that particular layer. So from the stem layer, I will delete all the masks except for the stem mask. From the leaf layer, the same. Delete all of them except for the leaf. And so forth. Left thorn, the same thing. Delete these 2 and delete the others. Right thorn. Flower base. And finally the flower. Now each and every layer contains just one mask and is the appropriate one. I will collapse all of these. What I want to do now is to add a ramp effect to all of these layers so that they can have different colors. I'll go to the Effects and Presets panel and I'm just going to click and type in the word ramp. There you go. This is the ramp effect. I'm going to add it to all of the layers. I'll add it to the flower. And I'll make the flower kind of yellowish with a little bit of brown. Something like that. Now I'm going to move it behind the flower base. There you go. I'm going to make the flower base green. Going to maybe a lighter green. That's a little better. I'm going to change it on the leaf as well. I'll click on the start of the ramp position button in the effect controls and move the point here. I'll do the same with the end point. That's a little bit better. And I think I'll leave it like that. All right, it is time now to make this flower grow from the ground up. So we're going to start by growing the stem, the leaf, the thorns, the flower base, and finally the flower. Let's go ahead and grow the thorn first. For that, I'm going to make all of my layers invisible except for the stem. So I'm going to solo the stem layer. There you go. I'll select the layer and press the letter M for mask. Now I'm going to keyframe this mask path backwards. In other words, I know that I want to end in this shape, so I'm going to keyframe it right there at the end, and now I'm going to move the CTI earlier in time. I'll zoom in, click outside, I'll undo that, select just one point or two, and then move him back like so. I'll move more backwards in time. This time I'm going to select all 4 of the points, and I'm going to use the Free Transform tool for this. The shortcut for the Free Transform tool is Control or Command T. T for transform. I'll move the anchor point to there, and I'll start resizing, and then I'll press and hold Shift and Control or Command, and that way all of my points will collapse into one. I'll move backwards in time a little bit more, select the points and move them back. Remember, what we want to do is to make the flower grow out of nothingness. I'll perform a Command T here, Free Transform, and press and hold Shift and Command, and I collapse all of the points that way. I'll select these keyframes and move them to the beginning. Remember, if you start moving and then you press and hold the Shift key, these keyframes will snap to CTI or the keyframes or the beginning or the end of a layer. Let me play this, and it is growing, and that's perfect. If I want to make this stem grow faster, all I need to do is select all of the keyframes, and they are already selected. Press and hold Option or Alt, and just squeeze them together a little bit more. Perfect. Now I think I'm going to make the leaf visible, so I am going to click on the Solo button for the leaf layer, and there it is. I'll select the leaf layer, and now I'll press M for mask. Same thing, I'm going to keyframe this backwards, which means I'm going to keyframe it there, and now I'll move the CTI to an earlier time. And all I really need to do is collapse these points. Just bringing them closer together. And finally, I'm going to select all of the points by clicking on the words mask path. And now I'll do a Command or Control T. And I'll collapse all of the points into one. And there you go. I'll make these a little bit faster. Remember, Alter Option. Now I'll go ahead and do the left thorn. I'll make that visible. And this one should be fairly easy. So I'll select it, press M for mask, and I'll keyframe it there. Now move earlier in time, and I'm just going to move the points to collapse them. And just a little bit more. I'll perform a free transform here. And there you go. Now the right thorn. I'll make it visible. M for mask. And I'll keyframe. And I'll just start collapsing points. And there you go. Now let's do the flower base. M for mask. I'll keyframe it there. Now I'll do it backwards, just like all the other ones. Move a little bit more. A little bit more now. I'll collapse them. And finally, I'm just going to use the free transform to collapse all of the points. And there it is, it grows. Great. Finally, I'll do that to the flower itself, make it visible. M for mask, and let's keyframe that mask path. And now backwards. And because it's hidden by the flower base, I think that's all I need to do. So here, a little bit before, I'm just going to totally collapse it. And disappear it. And I think our animation is done. Let me zoom out. And now play it. And there you go. You can make these go a little bit faster or slower by just collapsing the keyframes themselves, placing them closer to one another, and therefore playing with the rate of growth of the flower. Let's have a lot more flowers now. I can duplicate this growing flower composition, Control or Command D, and I'll have 4 more flowers. I can double click each and every one of them, and all I have to do is change the color of the flower itself. I'll make this one bluish. I'll make the next one pink. The following one purple. Just double click it, click on the flower layer, go to the ramp and change it to whatever. And finally this one, let's just make it bright red. And there you go. Now I'm going to create a new composition. I'll leave it at NTSC DV and I'm just going to call it Bunch of Flowers. And I'll click OK. And I can grab all of these other flowers and place them in there. They will all grow. Of course, they're all on top of each other, but they don't have to be. Select all the layers and press S to select scale for all of them. I'll make them all a little bit smaller. And I'll place them, say, at the bottom right hand side of the screen, so they just grow there like a little bouquet. And now I can rotate them individually. I'll do it by scrubbing the numbers. Select all of them, press R for rotation. And that's good. Now I think individually I'll move some of these a little bit. Maybe make some of them larger than others. Select all of them, S for scale. And there you go. Now all I have left to do is to have all of these not grow at the same time. So I'll select all of them and collapse them. I'll just stagger them in time a tiny little bit. And there you go. This way you can have a nice little bunch of flowers just growing.